I wanted to record this video earlier and then the day got away from me and now it seems semi-inappropriate to be posting this, but I'm going to post it anyway. I've been thinking a lot about how the 12 steps talk about how fear is this corroding thread that is shot, our entire existence is shot through with this thread of fear, that at the root of everyone's unhappiness, at the root of our most regrettable actions, at the root of all of these things that keep us separated, is this evil that is fear. And I do believe that fear is the root of all evil. And in addition to that, you have to think, well, then what is at the heart of all good, right? And you want to assume that maybe it's love, but the opposite of fear isn't love, it's courage, right? And you need courage in order to love. You need the courage to be vulnerable, to give and receive love. You need courage in order to not act out in fear, right? And while the intention of this original video was for addicts and alcoholics, I feel like this really actually just applies to everyone. This is just this is the human condition, that at the root of all of our most regrettable actions is fear. And of all the great wars, of all the disparity in wages, and the disparity in justice, the hatred that the country and that the world has this compulsion for, it is all fueled and motivated by fear. Greed is motivated by this fear of not having enough, that there is some scarcity in the world. Hatred is motivated by this fear of being unsafe, it helps me to be really compassionate for human beings when we are just running amok, you guys. We are just, and as addicts and alcoholics, we're just supposed to try to stay sober during this. And it's like, it's enough that we have to deal with this stuff in our own brain, but then you look outside in the world and you're like, how am I supposed to feel safe in this? Well, you can feel safe in it and you can feel okay with it. And it requires an amount of courage to, one, not retaliate, right? It requires a tremendous amount of courage to, when hate is looking you in the face, or when the speech around you is just fueled by fear and fear and fear and separation and division. It takes a lot of courage to say, that's enough. That's not going to get me where I want, into a world that I want to live in. The only thing that we can continue to do is try to have the courage to love. And that might be the most unpopular opinion, because then you think, well, what does love look like? We all have these different and often unhelpful ideas of what love is. And, you know, people can stay in really abusive relationships and say, well, it's because he loves me. It's because she loves me. No one's going to love me like they love me. And we're walking around with black eyes and, broken ribs, and we're calling that love. And you can look at that as an outsider and say, well, that's outrageous. That's insane. But we do it every single day in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our cities, in our counties, in our states, and in this country. And so it blows my mind when people are surprised to see violence enacted on such a public forum. And it's even less surprising when there's skepticism and cynicism around it too, right? I heard this wonderful quote today, and I'm really sorry that I can't remember who I heard it from, but it was, cynicism might be fashionable, but it's the greatest preventer of progress. And so I wonder are you having the courage to not be cynical? Are you having the courage to want to make progress? And if you're stuck in fear, I get it. This is a world that we've manifested from our deepest fears. And then we're asked to navigate it flawlessly. And while we can look at fear through our own personal lives, the way that we try to micromanage other people's emotions and behaviors and our own emotions and behaviors, and the way that we micromanage other people's perceptions of us and how we navigate life, and we don't want to be judged, and we don't want to be rejected, and we don't want to feel abandoned or feel unloved, and we act out in all these ways by either people pleasing or rejecting people or shutting ourselves off or from certain relationships or accepting really unhealthy relationships. These are all coping mechanisms that we've adapted throughout our lives in order to compensate for this fear that we're having, that ultimately is this fear of not having control, because we're not in control. And guess what? That's great. At the same time, there's this residual impacts that we have when we let our fears navigate what's going on in our belief system. It doesn't help anybody. If we can curb that one by one, just on an individual basis, by challenging the fear that we see and that is constantly being fed to us, that is constantly making us feel like there is no hope. I don't know if you saw one of my other videos, but one of my earlier videos, I can't remember which one it was, I literally said the most dangerous place for an addict or an alcoholic to be is in a state of hopelessness. And in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, that's what we become recovered from. We are recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body through a spiritual experience that we get to have. Not by becoming fearless, but by having the courage to evaluate our fears and looking at what is at the root of all of them. And so I often think that if we as a country could look at our fears and examine them honestly, make amends where appropriate, see where we're holding on to resentment and where we're unwilling to let go of, certain resentments or certain beliefs that are not conducive to progress. They're not conducive to a more uniform, a unified, and dignified way of living. Then I often wonder, what is the outcome going to be of that? I think day by day, we can see the beauty of, on an individual basis, the courage that people have to be kind to one another, whether they're just saying hi or they're, just giving their little neighbor a little wave, or they give an extra tip to the cashier at Starbucks or whatever, or they're just holding their tongue and not saying that terrible thing or spreading gossip or lies, or they're just being honest with themselves about how they feel about something. And it takes a tremendous amount of courage to do something differently, to do something kind, even if it isn't well received. We put ourselves in this beautiful position of vulnerability that challenges a lot of how we're told that we should want to operate in this world. That this is a dog eat dog world, and that we just need to protect ourselves and make sure that nobody takes ours, and like blah, 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 right? And it's like, I don't want to live like that. I don't think a lot of people want to live like that, but we're so conditioned to, that it continues to perpetuate. It's this flywheel of angst and anger and anxiety and rejection, protection, and just wanting to keep ourselves from each other in this really unhealthy way where we begin to dehumanize each other. It's too bad. you know? We could really have heaven on earth here if we really had the courage to. While I originally was going to talk about how fear is the root of all evil, but that courage is the antidote to it, as it is related to drugs and alcohol and self-work and looking at our shadow side. I think that today it's applicable on even a greater basis, you know? It's pretty interesting to think about how, I mean, we are all just one big organism of human. I think that we forget that. We're all, each of us on an individual basis, a part of a bigger humankind, right? So what is often true in this respect for one of us is going to be true on a greater basis. And I just hope that we can tap into that courage a lot sooner than later. Yeah, I think that's just what's on my mind right now. Hope that wasn't too incoherent, but I think I got everything out that I wanted to say. I originally was going to work on a vlog. I wanted to do like a Saturday night sobriety vlog. Let me know if you think that would be interesting. I've never done a vlog like before, and so I wanted to kind of challenge myself. I got this camera that I want to use. It's kind of cute. Have a housewarming party I'm going to go to tomorrow, and so maybe that would be cute to try to like document sober fun. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Did you watch this? If you watch this, give me a thumbs up in the comments. Give me a disco ball. Kind of my emoji. It's kind of my thing. All right. I love you, and I have the courage to love you just because you're beautiful and wonderful and you're uniquely and divinely created in the image of God. All right. See you.